Hey everybody, LethalFrag here for another episode of Cooking with Frag. Today we'll be doing an ingredient spotlight of polenta. Let's talk about how we got to doing cooking spotlight of polenta. I made a lot of changes to my diet over the past 3 weeks. I've cut out a lot of stuff. I'm not eating oil, meats, or bread right now, which is a bummer, but in about another 5 weeks I'll be adding stuff back into my diet. On a good note, this has led to me trying out a lot of new foods that I have not had very much before. What is polenta? Polenta is just coarsely ground cornmeal. A lot of times they'll label it polenta and it costs more, but you can just find coarsely ground cornmeal. The nice thing about polenta is it has a really creamy texture, and it is really a medium for any flavor that you want to add to it. So we're going to hop over to the cutting board here, and we'll talk about how to cook polenta and what it is. So all it is just, coarsely ground cornmeal. You'll see some little white pieces of the germ in there. To cook polenta, all you have to do is do 3 parts water to 1 part polenta. You can also use milk, you can use nut milk, you can use heavy cream if you want to. In restaurants, usually what you'll find with polenta is that it is cooked with a lot of heavy cream, butter, and cheese. It's really delicious that way, and cutting a lot of those things out of my diet, I was really worried that things would be bland. That is not the case here for sure. So I'm going to talk about one of my favorite preparations for this. It's become a pretty staple breakfast for me. We're going to be doing yellow curry paste and red pepper flakes. Curry pastes are really nice ways to spice up grains. They have a really long shelf life in the fridge. They last about 8 months, so it's not something you have to worry about perishing right away. So we're going to hop over and just get this on the stove real quick. All you have to do to cook the polenta is put it in the pan, add your liquid, and then turn it on like a medium heat, and stir it on occasion. If you're new to cooking, this is a great place to start because you literally cannot mess this up unless you walk away and let it burn. It is quite simple. We're going to go ahead and add our paste and red chili flakes as well. We're going to talk about some of the other preparations and ways to cook polenta. It's a pretty versatile ingredient overall. There's this way, which makes basically like an oatmealish porridge. And then as well, after it's cooked, you can cool it down and then cut it into squares or sheets or little tiny things and bake it, or hit it on the panini press to have a really nice crispy thing. If you spread it really thin and then just heat it up on a pan, it almost has like a burnt cheese texture, which is really nice. Let's break that up in there. Need to add a little salt too. Grab the seasoning salt. You can really go any way you want. It has a very neutral flavor. It is, at the end of the day, just ground corn. It doesn't have the sweetness of corn on the cob, but very neutral thing. Some of the other things I've done like a cumin coriander, done hot chilies like serranos or jalapenos, chipotle paste, chili powder. Could even put dried peppers in there for a real smoky flavor. This has pretty much become my breakfast almost every morning, and it leaves me feeling full and ready to take on the day. Before this, I would almost always eat like 3 pieces of peanut butter toast, and then probably another piece of bread before dinner, and then whatever else, cereal, frosted mini wheats, whatever. I'm not a huge fan of oatmeal, so I just wanted to try out some other grains, and this one has turned out really good. It's definitely something I really enjoy. I'd only had it before the restaurant style way, which is the heavy cream, butter, and cheese, which is decadent and amazing, but a big surprise for me. We also had quinoa as the other thing to vote. We might end up doing that sometime in the future, but I want to start doing some of these ingredient spotlights of stuff that people don't see very often. You just don't see people cooking polenta. It's a very old food, one of the oldest. As soon as they figure out they can make corn, they ground it and then cook it in water, and this is what you get. People traveling in wagons from the east to the west, it's a pretty staple food. Make things called Johnny cakes, which is basically just what I talked about. You make a polenta cake and then fry it in a pan, and then you got yourself a Johnny cake. If you find that your polenta is a little too grainy for you, you can always add more liquid. You can go up to about 4-to-1 before it turns into paste when it's cooked, which is fine too, but I just don't like that texture myself. So all you're looking for here is a nice little bubble. This will take about 6 or 7 minutes to reach its cooked state. I've also been adding in some nut milks. Cashew milk specifically makes it pretty creamy. Whole milk would do the exact same thing. The old adage is the more fat you add to something, the better it tastes. And I will say that's true of polenta. It's true of most things, but you don't have to add a ton of fat into it to have it be really creamy and delicious. You're essentially just rehydrating this with whatever flavors you want. I find it works really well with spice, but it can also go the sweet way. You can do like cinnamon and maple syrup. Pretty darn good. You really, you'd have a very hard time burning this, but you do want to stir it on occasion to make sure it is there. Of course, since we're doing the cooking show, I'm sitting here babying it so I can talk to you guys. All right, while this is simmering down a little bit, I'm going to go cut the green onion we're going to use for garnish. Got these huge green onions from our garden. Pretty good. That should be adequate. As you can see, my knife needs sharpened because it didn't go all the way through. The green onions from our garden are always so slimy because they're wet. It's not a bad thing. They taste great. Just not the little baby ones you're used to. They're big, huge stalks. That'll be a very simple light garnish. Let's go rinse this off. Polenta is also really great as a side addition to other dishes. Like if you make a chili, you can put polenta in the bottom of the bowl, and it really adds a nice thickness to it and a real fullness. Pretty much can be the base for a lot of things. Well, here we go. I said you can't burn it, and now almost scorched on the bottom of the pan. I can see I'm going to need some more water because it's not fully cooked yet. It still looks kind of chunky. So we'll just add in more water. Let that cook off, and then we'll be done. I'm also going to take a quick taste here to see where my spice and salt level is at. When it cools down, it gets really firm, so it is not this liquidy looking stuff after it cools down. You can really, it's very malleable, and you can cut it in any shape that you want. We've experimented with a few different things. We've tried baking it really thin, which comes out nice like that burnt cheese I was talking about. Cutting it into really small cubes and baking it like croutons. Works really good for salads. Grab a spoon here. But if you're new to cooking and you're afraid to cook stuff, this is a really great place to start because it is really hard to mess up. The only thing you can do wrong is walk away for too long. If you're sitting here, there's pretty much no way to goof it. Well, it tastes amazing. The salt level's right where it needs to be. Spice level's pretty great too. So this was simply yellow curry paste, which is a great ingredient and has a super long shelf life in the fridge, and red chili flakes. Might be a bit aggressive for some people for breakfast, but you can literally just go salt and pepper and it tastes awesome. All right, we got about 1 more minute here, then we're just going to plate it up. Want to let it cook, the moisture cook off a little bit more. You can really go quite dry with it, and it's more of like a cakey texture, like a cornbread texture, or you can go very liquidy, which is more like a porridge. The choice is yours, depending on what textures you prefer. I personally have a very hard time eating oatmeal because of the texture of it. I can do it, it's just not really for me. Alright, so that's fully cooked polenta. We're going to let it sit off of the burner for about a minute here so it cools down a little bit and firms up. And we'll plate it up. I know it's a very quick and simple cooking with Frag, but this is a great ingredient, and it's really nice addition to many dishes, as well as awesome for breakfast. Once again, if you're looking in the store, you can just look for coarsely ground cornmeal. It's the exact same thing as polenta, and probably won't be marked up in price as much. You can also just cook straight cornmeal like that, but it really turns out more of a paste than a texturally nice ingredient. You can see here it's already started to firm up quite a bit. If you put that in the fridge, of course you'd want to spray down a pan or use a Silpat. It would turn into a cake. I usually do about a third cup for breakfast. Works out good for me. This is a half cup right here. May not be the prettiest or most glorious looking dish. However, it is delicious and it'll leave you feeling full and awesome. So it's been the spotlight for polenta. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope somebody will go out and try polenta for the first time, which would probably be most people. It's just not an ingredient you see used very often, but it makes a great addition to chilies, soups, whatever you want it to be. Very versatile, very cheap, and very filling. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's Cooking with Frag Ingredient Spotlight. We'll be back with some faster than light in about 5 to 10 minutes. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Oh, let's get some questions on the chat. Thank you.
Can you show the curry paste?
Can I show the curry paste? Absolutely. Did we order this off of Amazon? I think we did. Okay, we ordered this from Amazon. It's just Mayploy yellow curry paste. They also sell other curry paste, red and green, which I think both would work good with polenta. But those have shrimp shells in them. But it's just a bag. Yeah. There's a bag of, it's just a bag of paste. And let's see what the expiration on this is. Manufactured 2015. Expires 2017, so it's good for about 2 years in the fridge. So it may look like a lot, and it's very potent stuff. You don't need very much, but it lasts a really long time. Really, really easy. If you take the polenta and you make cakes out of it and put it on a panini press, you get this really wonderful crispy texture off of the cornmeal, which is really nice. All right, I'll take a few questions from the chat, and then we're going to go get set up here. Grits versus polenta, flavor-wise, about the same, to be honest. The polenta has a little more flavor than grits. Of course, grits are very bland. You're supposed to add stuff to them. But polenta is also called corn grits, so it's basically the exact same concept as cooking grits. It has a little more flavor than grits, but not in a bad way. What kind of lean proteins would be best served with polenta? Well, as I said, chili works really nice. I think a nice seared chicken breast would be awesome over polenta. The nice thing about polenta is if you put something wet over it, it really absorbs the moisture and the flavor as it's sitting there. Let me grab a spoon here so you can see. Just going to poke the spoon in here. You can already see it's firmed up a lot from when it was in the pan. It really becomes more of a much thicker substance very quickly. So either eat it hot or cool it down and cook it again. Well, Black Knight, you can use it as a standalone. I would say mostly for breakfast, but if you're doing it, you can really add anything. You can make a whole entree with that. You can put a ton of veggies in it, a ton of meat, whatever you want. You could make a full dish out of polenta, but if you're serving it by itself, it'd be more of a side. Let's see what else we got here. If you were to add cheese to it, how late in the cooking would you add it? Great question. Okay, so if you want to do the cheese and milk route, what you do is you cook it in water till about where it was in the pan, and then you add your cheese and your milk, and you whip it in, and then you let it, the rest of the moisture kind of cook out, and then you plate it. So you add the cheese and your milk products at the end of the cooking period for polenta. You can add some milk into the initial cooking, but if you're going to be adding cheese or any heavy dairy, you whip that in at the end. Oh yes, eggs would be amazing with this. You could put a fried egg over this and it'd be just delightful. The creaminess of the yolk would definitely go very well with the polenta as well. I love egg whites. I mean, you can't go wrong with egg whites for me. What series of global knives do you use? If you somebody will link the gear list there, but I'm using a global. This is just the vegetable knife, and then I also have the global G8 or G6. I have the 8-inch chef's knife. As you know, I have the 10-inch chef's knife. I gave my 8-inch away. Okay, if you don't like spiciness, it's a good question. You don't have to go spicy with this by any means. It's a very level flavor. So you can literally just go salt and pepper. You can go like cumin and coriander. You can go herbs. You can go oil. You can go any way you want with the polenta. It's just something you can experiment with. So especially if you're newer to cooking and you're trying to figure out what kind of flavors you like, this is a great ingredient to start with because you can do anything with it. It'll accept any flavor out there. It's very similar to grits in that fashion. It's kind of bland, but if you add something to it, it takes the flavor very well. This would go awesome with the stew. You could even put the polenta in the bottom of the bowl and plate the stew on top. It really does go very well with soups and chilies. It firms up so it doesn't get totally mixed into the stew. You kind of get a little bit with each spoonful, or you can dig it out. Or you can mix it in there if you want to. But if you add it in the bottom of the bowl and put your stew or chili over the top, it's not going to just take over the dish. You can kind of eat it at your own pace. Polenta is actually traditionally a entree by itself. So yes, you can eat it by itself. I eat it by itself for breakfast most mornings. It's shrimp gumbo. That'd be a really great place to use polenta for sure. I guess the moral of the story is it's a very versatile ingredient that will accept almost any flavor. I can't think of too many things polenta would actually be bad in as an addition to the dish. If you want to make it a full-on entree, you're going to want to add more stuff into it. Maybe you saute some onion and garlic, and then throw some peppers in there, then add your polenta to make it more of a rich entree style. But it's dirt cheap and delicious. All right, guys, we're going to end it right here. Thank you all for your awesome questions. That was a great set of questions we had today. We'll be back in 5 to 10 minutes for some Faster Than Light, Back for One Night, the night before Afterbirth comes out. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you all for supporting the Patreon and making this segment possible. I think you're all amazing. That's all we got for tonight. Frag out.